The world learned the law of fire long before it learned writing. Fire decided borders. Fire decided kings. Fire decided whether a city would see another dawn. When dragons came, the age of arguments ended. They did not conquer with armies. They did not negotiate with words. They arrived once, only once, and burned enough of the world that no one ever needed reminding again. Stone fortresses melted. Rivers boiled. The sky itself seemed to retreat from their wings. After that, the rules were simple. Dragons ruled. Everyone else survived, if allowed. Humans survived the least. They were too numerous to erase completely and too stubborn to vanish on their own. Dragons tolerated them the way one tolerates moss on a mountain, harmless, persistent, insignificant. Humans paid tribute in gold, iron, livestock, and occasionally blood, and in return, their settlements were not reduced to ash that season. That was mercy. So when the summons came, sealed in blackened wax and delivered by a wyvern that never landed, the human kingdoms understood what it meant. A dragon had been offended. And offense, under the law of fire, required correction. The dragon court gathered atop Mount Varkal, where the stone was glassed smooth from centuries of heat. 12 ancient dragons circled the summit, their bodies coiled like living mountains, scales glowing faintly as if embers slept beneath them. The air itself shimmered, heavy with heat and pressure. Even breathing felt like a challenge issued by the world. No human had stood here in 3 generations. Yet one walked forward alone. He did not wear armor, only a dark travel coat scorched at the hem. His boots were cracked, his cloak threadbare, his face marked by old burns that no healer had ever fully erased. His hair was tied back simply. No crown. No insignia. Just a sword. It was plain steel. No runes. No glow. No magic singing along its edge. The kind of blade any village smith could have made, if they'd known how to temper it properly. The dragons noticed that immediately. They noticed everything. Human, rumbled the eldest among them, a colossal red whose wings cast a shadow over the entire summit. You were commanded to kneel. The ground trembled with his voice. Pebbles skipped across the stone. Lesser creatures would have collapsed simply from the sound. The human stopped 10 paces from the inner ring of flame. He did not kneel. I was commanded to attend, the human said calmly. His voice did not rise. It did not shake. I have done so. A murmur rippled through the dragons, not sound, but heat shifting, claws flexing, smoke curling from nostrils. Defiance was not new. Humans had tried it before. They always screamed eventually. You carry a weapon into the court, another dragon hissed, her scales pale as bone, eyes like molten gold. Do you believe it will save you? The human looked at her, not upward, not downward, just straight ahead. No, he said. That answer caused hesitation. Dragons understood fear. They understood hatred. They understood desperation disguised as bravery. But certainty without illusion, that was rarer. The eldest dragon lowered his massive head until one burning eye filled the human's vision. Then why bring it? The human rested one hand on the hilt, not gripping it, not drawing it. Simply touching it, the way one touches something familiar. Because you summoned me to speak for my people, he said. And humans speak differently than dragons do. A low, dangerous sound rolled through the court. Amusement, perhaps. Or anticipation. Your people broke tribute law, the eldest dragon said. A caravan failed to arrive. A dragon went unanswered. Fire answers such silence. The human nodded once. Yes, he said. It did. That single word, did, slipped through the heat like cold water. One of the younger dragons snarled. Then you admit guilt. I admit consequence, the human replied. Not weakness. Silence fell. Not the absence of sound, but the kind of silence where the world pauses to see what happens next. The human took one step forward. Flames rose instinctively, forming a ring of living fire between him and the dragons. Heat crashed against him like a wall. His coat smoldered. His skin blistered. He did not retreat. I am here, he said, voice steady despite the pain, to remind you of something you once knew. The dragons leaned in, not out of fear, but curiosity sharpened by something older. The human's hand tightened on his sword. Not yet raised. Not yet drawn. But for the first time in centuries, the law of fire hesitated. And waited. Fire pressed in from all sides. It crawled across the stone in slow, deliberate waves, testing the human the way predators test wounded prey, never striking all at once, only enough to see if he would break. The ring of flame tightened, its heat gnawing at flesh and breath alike. Still, the human did not kneel. Sweat ran down his face, sizzling as it touched the ground. His coat finally caught, the fabric blackening and curling away from his shoulders. Pain was no longer something distant or manageable, it was immediate, invasive, demanding attention. He ignored it. That, more than anything, unsettled the dragon court. Kneeling was instinctive. Every species that stood before dragons felt it. The pressure, the weight, the ancient dominance written into the world itself. Kneeling was not just submission, it was survival. Humans had knelt before. Kings, generals, prophets, heroes with shining blades and louder words. All of them had knelt eventually, whether from fear or wisdom or simple exhaustion. This one did not. Your flesh burns, the bone-scaled dragon observed, her voice sharp and clinical. Your body betrays you even if your will does not. The human exhaled slowly. Each breath felt like drawing air through a furnace. Yes, he said. It does. The eldest dragon's eye narrowed. Then you understand what defiance costs. I understand, the human replied. I have lived under that cost my entire life. Another step forward. The flames surged higher, licking at his arms, his neck. Blisters split. Blood seeped and vanished into steam. The smell of burned skin reached the court. Several dragons smiled. Turn back, growled a bronze-scaled WYM, wings twitching. You have proven your courage. That is more than most of your kind. The human shook his head once. I did not come to prove courage. Then what? The eldest demanded. To refuse your lie. The word struck harder than fire. A lie. Dragons were many things, cruel, proud, merciless, but liars? That accusation had not been spoken aloud in this place for longer than memory allowed. You rule by fire, the human continued, his voice growing hoarse but no less firm. You say it is law. You say it is nature. You say the world chose you. He raised his eyes, meeting the burning gaze before him. But fire is not law, he said. It is a tool. A ripple of heat rolled through the court, anger, sharp and immediate. Careful, hissed one of the younger dragons. Your tongue strays close to extinction. The human gave a thin, almost tired smile. It always has. He reached into his coat, ignoring the flames clawing at him. A few dragons shifted, claws flexing, ready to strike. He withdrew his hand slowly. In it was nothing but a small, scorched token, a disc of iron stamped with faded markings. This was my village, he said. Once. No one interrupted him. Dragons remembered villages. They remembered thousands of them. Your fire took it when I was a child, he went on. Not for rebellion. Not for war. Because a dragon was bored. Because someone wanted to hear screaming echo in the valley. The bronze WYM snorted. Irrelevant. The human nodded. To you. Yes. He let the token fall. It clinked against the glass stone and slid into the flames, vanishing. I did not come here seeking vengeance, he said. If I had, you would already be fighting. That earned laughter, deep, thunderous, mocking. With what? One dragon scoffed. That blade? That broken body? The human's hand returned to the hilt of his sword, not lifting it, not drawing it. Just resting there. With memory, he said. With patience. With something you forgot when you started believing fire made you gods. The eldest dragon's voice lowered. And what is that, human? The flames around the circle faltered, not extinguishing, not retreating, but wavering, as if uncertain. The human straightened despite the pain screaming through him. His spine locked. His stance became still, grounded, deliberate. Fire destroys, he said. But steel endures. A hush fell, real this time. Somewhere deep in the instincts of the oldest dragons, something stirred. Not fear. Recognition. The human took his final step forward, crossing the invisible line no one had crossed in centuries. He did not kneel. And for the first time since the Age of Flame began, the dragon court did not immediately burn a human where he stood. For a long moment, nothing happened. The human stood inside the ring of fire, skin split and smoking, breath shallow but measured. The dragons watched him the way storms watch mountains, certain of their power, yet wary of something that refused to move. Then the youngest dragon lost patience. It was a smaller thing by dragon standards, its scales dark and sharp-edged, eyes bright with hunger and pride not yet tempered by centuries. With a snarl, it reared back and unleashed flame, not the slow, testing heat of the court, but but true dragon fire. White hot. Absolute. Final. It should have erased him. The fire slammed into the human like a collapsing star. Stone beneath his feet softened. The air screamed. Even the elder dragons leaned back slightly, shielding their eyes from the brilliance. When the flames cleared, ash drifted where a man should have been. Satisfied murmurs rippled through the court. Predictable, the bone-scaled dragon said coolly. Then something moved in the smoke. A silhouette remained. Charred, bleeding, barely standing, but still there. The human staggered, dropped to one knee at last, not in submission, but because flesh could only endure so much. One hand braced against the ground. The other still held his sword. Not fallen. Not dropped. Still his. The youngest dragon froze, confusion flickering across its molten gaze. That's impossible. The human coughed, blood dark against the glassed stone. He drew one painful breath, then another. Slowly, deliberately, he pushed himself back to his feet. Every dragon watched now. This, the human said, voice raw but steady, is why you summoned the wrong kind of human. He straightened fully. And then, finally, he raised his sword. Not overhead. Not in a strike. He raised it vertically, point upward, hilt at his heart. The gesture was simple. Ancient. Intentional. Steel caught the firelight, and something else. The flames recoiled. Not extinguished. Not conquered. But, repelled. They bent away from the blade as if unwilling to touch it. Heat rippled strangely, breaking its own rules. The dragons felt it immediately. A pressure that did not come from magic. A weight that did not belong to fire. The eldest dragon inhaled sharply. That starts, he rumbled. The bronze WYM's wings twitched. No. That can't be. It is, whispered another, older than the rest. I remember. The human held the sword steady, arms trembling, not from fear, but from exhaustion held at bay by sheer will. This blade, he said, has never tasted dragon blood. A few dragons snarled in relief. But it was forged, he continued, for the day it might need to. The youngest dragon lunged, enraged. Before any elder could stop it, claws struck, aimed to tear the human in half. The sword moved. Not fast. Not flashy. Just enough. Steel met claw with a sound like a bell rung deep underground. The dragon screamed. Not in pain, dragons endured worse, but in shock. A shallow cut traced across its talon. Barely bleeding. Yet the court reeled. Dragon scales were meant to turn blades aside. Steel should have skidded harmlessly away. But this steel had answered. The human did not pursue. Did not attack again. He lowered the sword slightly, still raised, still present. That, he said, is the difference. The youngest dragon stumbled back, clutching its wounded claw, eyes wide. What are you? It demanded. The human's gaze did not leave the elders. I am what remains, he said, when fire fails. Memory struck the court like thunder. Images surfaced, old, buried, unwanted. Humans standing in shield walls, unburned because they stood together. Humans driving blades between scales while dragons bled for the first time. Treaties carved into stone because fire alone had not been enough. The eldest dragon's wings slowly folded inward. We ended those wars, he said carefully. Yes, the human replied. You ended them. He raised the sword again, higher this time, arms screaming in protest. But you never won them. The fire around the court dimmed. Just a fraction. Just enough to notice. Dragons who had ruled for centuries felt something unfamiliar coil in their chests. Not fear. Respect, forced into existence by memory and steel. The human stood there, burning, bleeding, unbowed. Sword raised. And for the first time since dragons claimed the world by flame. The law of fire did not speak first. The fire did not return. It lingered, low, watchful, coiled like a restrained beast, but it did not surge. The flames that had once roared in obedience to draconic will now flickered unevenly, as if uncertain whose command mattered more. The eldest dragon did not move. Neither did the human. Time stretched, heavy and deliberate. Then one of the ancients shifted. She was vast even by dragon standards, her scales darkened not by soot but by age, layered like obsidian plates polished by centuries of wind and war. Her wings bore scars so old they had faded into the texture of her body itself, marks not of fire, but of steel. She had been silent until now. I remember, she said. Her voice was quieter than the others, yet it carried farther. It did not shake the mountain. It did not demand obedience. It assumed it. The court turned toward her. You remember what? The bronze WYM asked cautiously. The ancient dragon lowered her head, not toward the human, but toward the sword. I remember when that stance meant death, she said. Not for humans. For us. A ripple of unease passed through the gathered dragons. The eldest frowned. Those were different times. Yes, the ancient agreed. They were honest times. Her gaze never left the blade. There was a war, she continued, before tribute. Before courts. Before we convinced ourselves that fire alone made us eternal. Images stirred in the shared memory of the court, half-buried fragments most preferred to forget. Battlefields scorched black not by dragonfire, but by stubborn resistance. Dragons grounded, wings torn, roaring in disbelief as humans closed ranks instead of fleeing. Steel rising and falling in rhythm, relentless, coordinated. We burned their cities, the ancient dragons said. They bled. They screamed. And still, they came on. The human listened, silent now, breathing shallow but controlled. They did not outmatch us, she went on. They outlasted us. The eldest dragon's claws dug into the stone. They lost. They survived, the ancient corrected. Which is worse? Her great head turned slightly, finally acknowledging the human directly. You carry no banner, she observed. No crown. No spell work. No, the human said softly. Those burn too easily. A low, thoughtful sound escaped her, almost a laugh. Once, she said to the court, humans did not come alone. They came in tens of thousands. Shield to shield. Blade to blade. And still, they raised their swords like this. Her gaze flicked back to the weapon in the human's hands. Not to threaten, she said. To promise. The youngest dragon hissed nervously. Promise what? That they would not stop, the ancient replied. Not until one of us did. Silence followed, thick, uncomfortable. The eldest dragon studied the human anew. You stand alone, he said. Whatever your past, you cannot repeat it. The human nodded once. I know. Then why come at all? The human lifted his eyes, tired, burned, but unwavering. Because this time, he said, I didn't bring an army. He shifted his grip slightly on the hilt, not tightening, centering. I brought a reminder. The ancient dragon's wings unfurled just enough to catch the light. A reminder, she echoed, that fire did not end the war. Her eyes narrowed. It paused it. The fire around the court lowered further, heat receding in reluctant submission. One by one, dragons straightened, not looming now, but listening. The eldest dragon exhaled slowly, a long plume of smoke drifting skyward. You ask us, he said carefully, to remember a weakness. The human shook his head. I ask you, he said, to remember restraint. He raised the sword again, steady despite everything. Because humans learned something you forgot, he added. Fire makes rulers. He met the ancient dragon's gaze. But restraint, he said, is what keeps worlds standing. For a long moment, no dragon spoke. Then the ancient lowered her massive head, not fully, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. And the court understood something it had denied for centuries. The human had not come to challenge their rule. He had come to test whether they still deserved it. The ancient dragon's head remained lowered. Not bowed in defeat. Not forced by fear. Lowered in recognition. The dragon court watched in stunned stillness as the eldest among them, one who had seen empires burn and oceans boil, chose to acknowledge a human without fire or command. The flames encircling the summit dimmed until they were no more than a low, glowing perimeter, present but no longer threatening. The law of fire had reached its limit. The eldest dragon broke the silence first. You stand, he said slowly, where thousands of your kind once stood together. The human did not lower his sword. Yes, he replied. And you remember why. The eldest's great wings shifted, folding inward, not to strike, but to settle. We believed time had erased that truth, the dragon admitted. That fear would finish what fire began. The human's voice was quiet now, almost gentle. Fear only works, he said, until someone decides it's cheaper than obedience. A murmur passed through the court, uneasy, thoughtful. The youngest dragon flexed its wounded claw, staring at the shallow cut as if it were a prophecy written in flesh. If humans can still do this, it asked, why haven't they? The human finally lowered the sword, not sheathing it, not relaxing his grip, just resting its tip lightly against the glass stone. Because we chose not to, he said. He looked around the court, meeting each dragon's gaze in turn. Because restraint was easier than war, he continued. Because coexistence cost less than victory. Because we decided the world was worth surviving together. The ancient dragon inclined her head a fraction more. And if we forget again? She asked. The human did not answer immediately. Instead, he lifted the sword one last time, not high, not threatening, just enough to be seen. Then we will remind you again, he said. No bravado. No hatred. Just certainty. The eldest dragon closed his eyes briefly, a gesture so rare it sent a shiver through the gathered court. When he opened them, the fire in his gaze had softened into something older and heavier than rage. Then hear this, he declared, his voice rolling across the mountain and into the skies beyond. The law of fire is amended. The word struck like thunder. Fire shall rule no longer by whim, he continued. No dragon shall burn a human settlement without judgment. No tribute shall be taken without cause. No life shall be ended for boredom or pride. Several dragons stiffened, but none objected. The ancient dragon spoke again, her voice steady and final. A new law is added, she said. Steel will be remembered. The human exhaled for the first time since arriving, a long breath, heavy with pain and relief. You will leave this place alive, the eldest dragon said. And your people will hear what passed here. The human nodded once. They will. He turned, slow and careful, every step a testament to stubborn survival. The heat receded as he walked, the mountain itself seeming to ease around him. Behind him, something unprecedented happened. One by one, the dragons lowered their heads. Not kneeling. Acknowledging. By the time the human reached the edge of the summit, the fire had died completely, leaving only warm stone and drifting ash. The law of fire still existed. But now, carved alongside it, unburned, unbroken, was a truth the world would never forget. Dragons rule by fire. But they remember by steel.